Springfield, Missouri, a quiet middle-class town, the kind of place where neighbors recognize each other's cars, where violent crime was rare. It was June 6, 1992, graduation season, a night full of celebration. High school senior Suzie Streeter, age 19, had just graduated. Her friend, Stacy McCall, also 19, planned to spend the night with her. Suzie lived with her mother, Sherrill Levitt, age 47, at 1717 East Delmar Street. Nothing about that house felt dangerous, and that's what makes this case terrifying. That evening, Suzie and Stacy attended graduation parties. They planned to stay overnight at a friend's house, but got too crowded. So around 2:15 a.m., they decided to go back to Suzie's home instead. Witnesses later confirmed the girls were in good spirits. No signs of fear, no one following them. At approximately 2:30 a.m., Suzie and Stacy arrived home. Sherrill Levitt was already there. This is the last confirmed moment anyone saw the Springfield 3 alive. The next morning, friends came to pick up Suzie and Stacy. They arrived at the house expecting sleepy teenagers. Instead, they felt something was off. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Purses lined up neatly. Money still inside. Car keys untouched. Both women's cars parked outside. The TV was on. Lights were working. No broken windows. No forced entry. The family dog was calm. Not anxious. Not aggressive. Just waiting. Friends assumed the women had gone out briefly. So they did something that would haunt this case forever. They cleaned the house. They washed dishes. They wiped surfaces. They picked up items. Potential evidence destroyed. Hours passed. Still no sign of Suzie, Stacy, or Sherrill. Finally, police were called. By then, the house was no longer a crime scene. It was just empty. Investigators later said something chilling. It did not look like the women were abducted violently. It looked like they left voluntarily. But why would 3 women leave their home at night? Without shoes, without purses, without a word? And why would all 3 disappear together? Did they know the person at the door? Were they tricked into stepping outside? Or was someone already inside the house, waiting? Because nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. Only people were missing. Whatever happened inside that house was quiet, controlled, and terrifyingly clean. And as investigators would soon learn, this wasn't a crime of panic. It was a crime of planning. When police finally arrived at 1717 East Delmar Street, they expected chaos. Instead, they found order. Beds were made. Shoes were still inside. Makeup was neatly arranged. It looked like 3 women had simply paused their lives and stepped away. But houses don't lie. And this one was trying to say something. One detail stood out. The glass cover of the front porch light was shattered, not smashed violently, not scattered. The pieces were carefully gathered and placed on the porch. This suggested one thing. The glass didn't break during a struggle. Someone broke it, then cleaned it up. Why? To avoid being seen? Or to remove fingerprints? Days after the disappearance, the Streeter home phone rang multiple times. When police answered, there was heavy breathing. No words, no background noise, just breathing. Then the caller hung up. These calls were never traced, and they stopped as suddenly as they began. No signs of panic. Investigators searched for signs of a fight, signs of forced entry, signs of escape. They found none. No overturned furniture, no blood, no broken doors, which led to a disturbing conclusion. Whoever took them did not frighten them immediately. The women likely believed they were not in danger, at least not at first. One theory began to dominate early discussion. What if someone knocked on the door? Someone they trusted? A police officer? A neighbor? A familiar voice? If 3 women opened the door together, it suggests confidence, not fear. But then another question emerges. Why would all three leave the house? Why not just one? Suzie and Stacy arrived home. Around 2:30 a.m., neighbors reported hearing nothing. No screams, no car engines, no disturbance. If they were taken, it happened quickly, quietly, and with control. This was not random. Police questioned dozens of people, party guests, friends, neighbors. Some names raised eyebrows, but there was no physical evidence, no DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses, just theories and silence. The most terrifying possibility. Investigators began to accept a chilling idea. The women may have been tricked, not forced, not dragged, but convinced, because fear leaves marks, and this crime left none. If someone convinced three women to leave their home at night, then that person didn't need violence. They needed trust. And in part 3, we'll explore the suspects who knew exactly how to use it. As days turned into weeks, the Springfield 3 case stopped being a rescue. It became something else, a hunt for answers, in a town where everyone knew everyone, and that made things dangerous. The friend who was meant to stay. Originally, Suzie Streeter was supposed to stay at her friend Janelle Kirby's house that night. At the last moment, Suzie decided to go home instead. That single change may have altered everything. Investigators later wondered, if she hadn't gone home, would all three still be alive? The name that kept coming back. One name repeatedly surfaced in whispers. Garrison family connections. Local rumors. Uncomfortable coincidences. Nothing solid enough to charge, but enough to make people uneasy. Some suspects had criminal histories. Others had personal ties. Yet none could be placed inside the house. The van theory. Multiple witnesses later reported seeing a green van near the house that night. It wasn't proven, but if true, it explains something terrifying. The women may not have left willingly. They may have been moved, quickly, quietly, without neighbors noticing. Why no bodies? This question haunted investigators. Springfield is surrounded by lakes, forests, and abandoned rural land. If someone wanted to hide evidence forever, they could, and many believe the women were never meant to be found. Serial killers usually leave signatures. This crime left nothing. No demands, no ransom, no messages, which suggested something else. This wasn't about attention. It was about control. Some investigators believed the women were taken for personal reasons. Not random, not impulsive, planned, targeted, which means someone knew their routines, their habits, their home. If this was planned, then someone in Springfield knew exactly what happened and chose silence. In part 4, we uncover the theory that terrified police the most and why some believe the truth was deliberately buried. In 1993, 1 year after the disappearance, police received a tip that changed the entire direction of the case. A man claimed he knew where the bodies were hidden. The location? A parking garage, under construction in Springfield. The dig that came too late. Investigators rushed to the site, but construction had already progressed. Concrete had been poured. Heavy machinery had erased any chance of physical proof. Still, ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies, shapes that could be graves. But officials made a decision that shocked many. They did not dig. Why would police stop? The reason given was simple. No probable cause. But critics weren't convinced, because this wasn't just any tip. The informant described details, not released to the public. Details that only the killer, or someone very close, could know. The most terrifying theory. Here's the theory that haunts this case. The women were abducted and killed shortly after. Their bodies were temporarily hidden, then later moved and sealed under concrete. During construction, buried in plain sight. forever. If this is true, then thousands of people walk over their graves. Every single day, cars park above them. Life continues, and no one knows. Connections that made police uncomfortable. Some suspects had ties to construction crews. Others had connections to people who could influence investigations. Nothing provable, but enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to make some believe. This case wasn't just unsolved. It was avoided. A family left with nothing. The families were told, no evidence, no bodies, no closure, just silence and unanswered questions. If the women are truly buried beneath that garage, then the truth didn't disappear. It was covered. In final part, we reveal why this case still terrifies investigators today, and the one question that refuses to die. Decades have passed. Leads came. Suspects faded. Witnesses died. But one thing never changed. The house never gave up a single clue. No blood. No fingerprints. No forced entry. It was as if the women walked out willingly. And that's what scares investigators the most. The most likely answer. Experts now believe one thing. The women knew the person at the door. Because strangers don't get invited in at 2:30 a.m., especially by three women who had no plans to go anywhere. Which means the danger wasn't outside. It was already trusted. Why this case still haunts police. This case broke multiple rules, multiple victims, one location, no straggled, no evidence, no bodies. That combination is almost impossible, unless the crime was calculated, controlled, and quiet. A terrifying possibility. What if the women were taken alive? What if they were moved immediately? What if they were killed somewhere? That guaranteed no discovery? Because no bodies means no crime scene, no charges, no justice. The silence that screams. Their purses stayed behind, keys untouched, cars unmoved. Everything says, we'll be right back. But they never were. Why this case may never be solved. No physical evidence remains. No DNA, no timeline, just theories and silence. Sometimes the perfect crime isn't violent, it's quiet. Three women vanished from inside their own home. So the real question is not who took them, but how did someone leave without leaving anything behind? If this case disturbed you, subscribe to Whispers Unsolved, because some mysteries aren't forgotten. They're protected by silence.